was 18. That's how many times I tried to end my life. So it's a lot of situations. But every time it didn't work. And every time something came up, or every time someone was there.
What was it like growing up, and what is your ethnicity? What's your background?
So I am quarter Malaysian,
Okay.
quarter Indian, and half English.
Okay.
So a nice little mix.
Mm.
In school, I think definitely secondary school, I was in like the popular kids, but I would say the intelligent one. So kind of like not fitting in all the way, but like it was a nice group of people. But I felt definitely home life around that time was very difficult. So obviously being younger, like 14, 15, 16, not really understanding, I guess, like mentally the effects that I had.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say school life was quite difficult because it was like suppressing emotions that I didn't know I had for like the whole time.
And did home life add to that?
Oh, for sure.
How?
I think growing up with, so I grew up with my mum, who's Indian, and just naturally Indian parents are very strict in like the way that they know it. So she got it from her parents to be very rigid. So I think I never felt this connection, if you like, that some people have with their parents. I never had that with my mum. So it was like, I can't really talk to you about anything. And like saying I love you was like, never. It's not something, even now, it's still a hard thing to do because of those processes. So yeah, it was a weird time, like, emotionally.
Mm. Okay, I'm just going to give you this.
Oh wow.
So tell me, tell me about this young. Which one's you? Point out which one's you.
I'm this one.
Oh,
I'm the glasses.
okay. So tell me about young Dylan. Like, what would your friends describe you?
Oh, that's crazy. I think I was always similar to now, very smiley. Like I've always, I don't know why, I just been smiling. I think when I was younger, I was very immature for quite a long time. I was like the class clown, if you like.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely the one that, not like to be in trouble, but to cause people to laugh. I wanted attention. That's what I think it was. Like I want to be the person that brings joy to people or brings laughter to people. Hence why the glasses.
Are you? So you're the younger one.
I'm the younger one, yeah. So my brother is 18 months older than me.
And what was that like family dynamic like? So it was your mom, your older brother, and you?
Yeah, and my stepdad.
Oh, your stepdad.
He was amazing. Like he was like the caring, loving side. So I'm very blessed that I had something from that side. Me and my brother were really good. Kind of had like fights as you do, but very good relationship. And he was like the go-to, like in situations that were very difficult, because I couldn't go to my mom. So he was like that person for me for a long time.
And what was your hardest time in school, would you say, and why?
I would say, I think between the years of years 7 to 9, like younger years, I had a lot going on at home life, and so I think that played a big part in like my behaviour. I got excluded a lot, and it wasn't like massive things, just little things that were like an annoyance to the teachers. So I think that caused just a lot of disruption in my school life. Not really feeling, like, you know, it's so hard when you're that young because you don't understand what's happening. So I think mentally it's like, I'm trying to get help, I don't know how to, and like, I'm getting all the attention, and that's like the only way I know how to get it. So I think those, year 7 to 9 was difficult.
And what caused that disconnect with your mom, would you say?
I think it's just due to her parenting style and like the way she'd been brought up by her parents. And I think she just never adapted, you know. It's like the only way she knew. So I think for me it wasn't ever a situation where I was hurt by it, because when I got older I understood, like, okay, this is what she experienced, this is what she thinks is normal. But it just meant that you wouldn't feel safe, you know, in like with your, I guess, parent per se, to bring certain things to them. Like I remember in those years, like year 7 to 9, I got jumped, and I came home and I was trying to hide. I had like broke my cheekbones and like properly done for, and I didn't want to show it. I was scared because the for me, I'd get more punishment from like the inconvenience of her having to now deal with it, rather than like coming to her and feeling loved by it. So I remember like coming home, putting my dressing gown at like 2 p.m, going into the living room and like not looking at her, and she was like asking me like, why you got your head up? I'm like, no, I'm just cold, and trying to like play it off, because it's just the fear of like, and I also got my phone taken, so like that was a big thing, like the money spent on the phone, and I think the guilt that I felt from it, even though I did nothing wrong, it was hard to like connect with her because you just didn't feel that, I guess, safe and sound in that situation. Yeah.
So would you say, because of that relationship, would you say you internalized a lot?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, didn't process like anything. Probably up until I was like 22. Maybe 20, 22, 21, 20, around that ages, yeah.
How did that affect you in terms of just being a human and operating?
I think when I got to my like later teen years, kind of 17, 18, that's when almost like the pressures of life come. You know, you start looking for jobs or going to uni or those things, and I realised that actually life is not as good as I thought it was, like mentally. I think I just felt very, I was in a relationship for 3 years, and I think when I came out of that, I realised actually on my own, I'm like almost nothing. Almost like everything that I had was given to a person because they give it back. You know, you get this love back from them. But I realised very quickly that actually, like, without that person, I was like a wreck, a mess.
So at what point in terms of your mental health, at what point did it become real for you? Like,
definitely when I left school. So I actually left school early, like halfway through my A-levels, after the first year. Because like mentally, it's so weird because I would say I never experienced like proper sadness before 18, which sounds crazy, but I think overall like I was always a happy guy. So when it hit me, this like sadness and I guess anxiousness as well, it was like out of nowhere, didn't have to deal with it, didn't really have like support, and I think at that age your friends don't really even know how to deal with it either. So that's when it hit me and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I just became very like isolated in myself, kind of doing things I wouldn't usually do, like drinking a lot and going out a lot, things that I didn't enjoy, but again it fills the time. Because the times at night are where it's like hits, when you're alone, in those times where you can't call upon anyone, that's when it was like dark times.
So at what point when was the point that you started to consider suicide?
So I think probably halfway through 18. I think it was like, I think I'd thought about it like before 18, like literally just before, but where it became like real was like midway through 2018. I think it's when I was 18. So it was like the realization that actually I don't know what's wrong, I don't know how to solve it, and like if I can't deal with it anymore, like those feelings, and so that's when I first considered it or like acted upon it, would be midway through my 18.
And did you express to anyone around you about it?
Sort of, not well. Like it was, I think it's one of those things that people don't believe at first, because it's like maybe you've not done anything as yet, you haven't showed like the normal, I was very functional, so like I was still working, I was still going to the gym, I was a very functional person, so it's almost like it went against everything that I was saying to them. And so I tried to tell people, not well, definitely not in the right way, but I think after the like first attempt is when it got real for the people that I was talking to.
How did this impact your relationship with your family during that time?
I don't think I had one really. With my brother, yeah, like he was the support person, like when I was in hospital he was there, if I needed to go to hospital he was there. But I think with the rest of my family it was very blasé, like no one wanted to talk about it. It was like, you get support, it's like they're trying to understand it, but even I don't understand it. So I can't give them the answers they want at the time. So it was very hard to even have a relationship with my family, definitely like my stepdad mum, because it's something, I think especially for the older generation, that maybe wasn't as prevalent. So it's like, they've got no experience of it either. And I'm coming and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to live in this, like, how do you explain that to your parents?
Do you remember that day of your first attempt?
So yeah, I remember there was a police station opposite the bridge that I was going to, and it's such a weird because you see the police station as you walk past it, and in my mind I'm like, should I just go there and like talk to them, or it was like the first time of feeling that low, so I wasn't really sure how to act with it. But I went to the bridge. I'm scared of heights, by the way. It's good for context. So I remember walking to the bridge. There's like a metal railing, obviously that stops you going over. And for maybe, I don't know how long it was. It felt like forever. I was just stood over it. So just watching the cars under like go past, and just like looking down, and that scared me enough to be there. And then I think I just got so in my head at the time of like, you've said you're gonna do it, like just do it. So I stepped over with one leg, so I had one leg over, one leg on, and then stepped over the other one. And it's a very thin ledge, like that is there, and I'm like stood there, like my feet are massive, but like half my foot's off, and I'm like holding on to the barrier behind me. And then I realised, oh, I'm scared of heights. So I like froze. Like even if I wanted to go back over now, like I couldn't. I was so like scared of being there. And I remember it was almost like trying to hype myself up to do it. It sounds really silly. I was like there, like in your head, you have that voice, and I'm like trying to tell myself like, just do it, like this is why you came here, sort of thing. And again, I don't know how long I stood there for, but it felt like forever. It feels like you see all these cars pass, and you see like, even looking around me, like there's people walking past, and I just remember like hearing somebody, but it being like muted, almost like they had like a muzzle on it and trying to talk to me, like not being able to hear what was being said. And I'm like looking down, and I think I just said like I'm scared or something like that. And the next thing I know, like someone had taken me like off, so like pulled me over, like put me to the floor, and it was police. So and it hurt, like they probably took me out, took me down, and were like, and I just started crying. Like I just remember being there, I just started crying, and this was for like at least 30 minutes. I was just on the floor, just crying, and they were like talking to me and trying to like have a conversation, and I just couldn't. I was like trying to explain how I was feeling or where I was at, and I didn't have the words to say anything. And they took me to the police station, and then took me to, we have like a mental health hospital in Reading, and so they took me there to get like assessed, and the guy said, yeah, like it's all good, it's just one of those, like going for a phase of this and that. So that was the first time, like, yeah, it was the first time I've like cried about it, like especially openly. I was like, and I couldn't stop it. It was like this feeling of like, I wanna solve it, like, and that's what I was saying when I had the assessment, like, I don't know what's wrong, but I wanna solve it. Like I don't wanna be feeling this way constantly. And that's when I was 18, and it lasted till I was like 22. So it was a long period of time.
And okay, how did you see, in what way did you see God in that, now that you're kind of out on the other side?
Yeah, now that I'm out of it, it's quite easy, I think, hindsight. I became Christian maybe 2 years after that. So I think those maybe 2.5 years, 3 years. And I was, at the time, I would say I was a good person. Like I wouldn't do anything negative, but I didn't have like hope or faith in anything, which I think was the biggest issue. Because for me it was like, this is how I feel now, I'm not that hopeful it's going to change, and so what's kind of the point? So I think now I can see that God, I mean there's a belief that obviously God doesn't give you more than you can take, and I think that belief is standing on the fact that you have God, like, and that God is so good that even if I can't take it, He's with me, and He's going to carry that burden for me. And I think that's what I see now, is that in all those situations, and it was 18, that's how many times I tried to end my life, so it's a lot of situations, but every time it didn't work, and every time something came up, or every time someone was there, or every time it was like the right time to be at the hospital, and I'm like 18 times, like it's not a coincidence, you know, like God really brought me through that situation.
And who introduced you to Jesus?
So a friend of mine, Nathaniel, he was preaching. He's younger than me, a year below me, so he would have been maybe at the time 19 or 20. And he was leading his testimony at church. He asked me to come. He kind of lied to me a little bit. He said it was about mental health, or that was my interest at the time. So I was like, yeah, I'll come. And I got there, and yes, it was about mental health, but it was about God and how God serves in those seasons. And so I went to the testimony, and I sat there kind of in awe for 45 minutes. Just like, I know his situation, I know what he's going through, and he's at so much peace. I was so confused. And to talk about it in the moment, like it was still happening, I was just confused. His family were there, people that don't know anything about him in that side of his life were all there, and it's like such a hard thing to talk about one-on-one. So in front of 100 people, I didn't understand it. And I left church that day, and I was like, I need to know more. And I wanted answers, like I wanted to ask him a question and him say this. But he was like, if you want to know more, start reading the Bible and come to church. And I was like, damn. So that was my first introduction to that church, and I started going, started reading the Bible. Nothing really changed, to be honest, for 3.5, 4 months. And I actually was so close to kind of, I think, walking away from it, because I was still feeling very down. And I was like, I'm actually putting a lot of work into this and getting nothing out of it. But you know, God at the right moment made that change.
What's your perspective on therapy and Jesus? Do you feel like the two go together?
I think so. I think the only reason that I'm so in the place I am, stability-wise, is because of both. I think sometimes we get carried away on God, you know, does everything, which he does, but he also brings people to do things. So the last time that I attempted, which was in 2020, it was quite a bad one. It was a lot of tablets and a lot of alcohol, and I was voluntary sectioned in a mental health hospital for 8 weeks. And the condition I left there was that I had therapy ready before I left. So I got 2 years of therapy twice a week, straight away. And anyone trying to get therapy now, that's going to happen in 2 years, 3 years. So God provided, it was intense, you know, it was 3 hours a week for 2 years of therapy. But along with I remember when I had my review, which was actually very recently, you look back on your notes of what they write, and a lot of it was Dillion feels at peace when he's in church, or Dillion feels at peace when he's talking about God. And I think I look back on therapy very differently after reading them. Most of my therapy, yes, it was about mental health, but a lot of it was finding the peace and comfort in Jesus and understanding that through therapy, you know, and mentalizing and allowing my emotions to make sense to me, but through Jesus and him doing it for me, not with my works.
So how did God turn your pain into joy?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think it was understanding that actually pain is needed. And, you know, I think a lot of the pain we have is to bring changes and to bring more faith and to be tested by God, but also to strengthen ourselves for his kingdom. The pain, I still have these thoughts here and there, but my stability is so rooted in God now. And I'm almost on the understanding that actually without Jesus, this could go back to how it was. I need God, and without God being there for me and testing me in those times, I wouldn't understand what I understand about him now. And so it caused me to almost take a 360 and say, I was living my life for myself, and now I understand God, all I want to do is live with him. And without that pain, there's no way I would have been there.
And my last question is, someone who doesn't know Christ, they don't have a faith, nothing to believe in, but has been through similar hardships, what advice would you give them?
I could recite so many Bible verses. I think for me, and this is a verse that still applies to this day, and I want to go into it a little bit, but it says that Romans 8:18, our present suffering won't compare to the glory revealed in us. And I think it's the first Bible verse that I resonated with all that time ago. But the more and more I think about it, God isn't telling you that it's not going to be hard and that you're not going to suffer and it's not going to be painful. and that there's gonna be times where you feel isolated, lonely, and you just don't want to do it. Like, he never ever says that. And there's a lot of parts of the Bible that say, you know, we're gonna struggle. But it's that he takes suffering and glory completely worlds apart. Like, the glory we have is gonna be so high and so joyous and so happy to be in, that like, don't you dare compare it to what we're going through now. And that would be my advice, is that the suffering it's not the end, it's a season. Like it says that you'll walk through the shadow of death, you'll walk through, like, you never stay there. And I think that is what keeps me going and kept me going at times, is that I'm gonna suffer. Do I like it? No. Do I want to do it? No. But the joy, the happiness, the peace that I have now was from that. And it's just a season, you know, it will end. Maybe it takes longer than you want, but God's plan is perfect.
Things will get better. Things will get better. Things will get better, my dear. All things in time, all things in time. I know this too shall pass. I know this too shall pass. I